There's a quiet truth that most people discover too late in life. It arrives not as revelation, but as recognition. Somewhere in your 70s or 80s, you begin to notice that the quality of your days, the peace you feel, the ease with which you move through hours, has less to do with your circumstances than you ever imagined. It has everything to do with what you've been thinking about, dwelling on, returning to in your mind, day after ordinary day, for decades. Your thoughts have been building something, a dwelling place, and now, in these later years, you're living in it. This isn't mysticism. It's not positive thinking dressed up in spiritual language. It's something the Buddha understood 2,500 years ago, something neuroscientists are now confirming with brain scans and longitudinal studies, something you can feel in your own life if you pay attention. What you think about daily doesn't just pass through your mind like weather. It reshapes your brain. It carves pathways. It builds the architecture of your inner world, and that inner world becomes the only home that truly matters as you age. The Pali Canon records the Buddha saying, "We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts we make the world, not the world of politics or economics or physical circumstances. The world you actually live in, the one happening inside your chest when you wake at 3 in the morning, the one coloring every conversation, every sunset, every memory that surfaces uninvited. In your youth, you could outrun your thoughts. You could distract yourself with ambition, novelty, the relentless forward motion of building a life. But age strips away those escape routes, one by one. The career ends. The children leave. The body slows. And there you are, finally, with just your mind for company. If you've spent decades feeding it worry, resentment, and fear, that's the companionship you'll have. If you've trained it toward gratitude, acceptance, and compassion, even imperfectly, even intermittently, you'll find a very different kind of peace waiting. This is what Buddhist mind training has always been about. Not achieving some permanent state of bliss, but understanding that your mind is trainable, shapeable, and that the shaping happens whether you're paying attention or not. The question isn't whether your thoughts will form you, it's whether you'll participate consciously in that formation or let it happen by accident and habit. Recent research from Harvard Medical School reveals something remarkable. The aging brain retains far more plasticity than we once believed. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections, to literally rewire itself, doesn't disappear at 30 or 50 or 70. It continues throughout life, though it requires something specific to activate. Sustained attention, repeated practice, deliberate engagement. In other words, what you give your attention to daily grows stronger. The Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh often spoke of watering seeds. Every thought is a seed. Every time you return to a particular mental pattern, gratitude or grievance, curiosity or complaint, kindness or criticism, you water that seed. You're not just thinking the thought. You're strengthening the neural pathway that makes that thought easier to think again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, until it becomes the default, the automatic, the obvious lens through which you see everything. There's a particular poignancy to this in old age. Medical researchers studying successful cognitive aging have found that seniors who maintain mental sharpness into their 80s and 90s aren't necessarily the ones who did the most crossword puzzles. They're the ones who stayed engaged with life, curious about ideas, interested in people, open to learning. But beneath that engagement lies something deeper, a habit of mind, a way of meeting each day that treats the brain not as a declining asset but as a living garden that still responds to tending. The tragedy isn't that some people's minds dim with age. The tragedy is that many people, without realizing it, have been training their minds toward dimness for decades, not through lack of intelligence or education, but through what they habitually thought about, through the steady drip of negative self-talk, of dwelling on injuries from 40 years ago, of rehearsing fears that never materialize, of treating each day as something to get through rather than something to witness. One of the most significant findings in recent neuroplasticity research comes from a study following older adults over 8 years. Those who reported higher levels of eudaimonic well-being, a sense of meaning, purpose, growth, showed substantially lower mortality rates. The researchers were careful. They controlled for baseline health, socio-economic status, everything they could measure. The difference couldn't be explained away. Something about how these people related to their lives, about the quality of their inner experience, about what they dwelled on mentally, was literally keeping them alive longer. The Buddha would not have been surprised. He taught that our lives take shape according to the direction of our thoughts, that we become what we frequently think about. Modern neuroscience simply gives us a different vocabulary for the same truth. Your brain is reorganizing itself constantly in response to where you direct your attention. You are, neurologically speaking, becoming your thoughts. Here's what nobody tells you about getting older. Your mind becomes less forgiving, not in the sense of holding grudges, though that can happen, but in the sense that you have less buffer between your habitual thoughts and your experienced reality. The distractions of youth fade. You can't lose yourself in career ladder climbing anymore. You can't outrun your own mind with constant activity. When you're young, you can harbor corrosive thoughts about yourself and the world, and still, somehow, push through. The body's resilience, life's demands, the sheer momentum of everything left to do, these carry you forward despite your mind's weight. But in your 70s and 80s, that changes. The momentum stops, the resilience thins, and whatever you've been thinking about all these years, that becomes the atmosphere you breathe. A Zen teacher once told a student who complained of persistent worry, "You've been practicing worry for 40 years. No wonder you're good at it." There's a devastating accuracy in this observation. We think of worry, rumination, self-criticism as involuntary experiences, things that happen to us. But they're actually skills we've developed. We've practiced them so diligently, so faithfully, that they've become expert-level performances, executed automatically, dozens of times a day. The same is true for every recurring thought pattern. That voice in your head that says, "I'm not enough." You've rehearsed it 10,000 times, the reflexive anger at minor inconveniences, 10,000 repetitions. The assumption that people are judging you, 10,000 times watered. These aren't just thoughts anymore. They're neural superhighways, traveled so often they might as well be paved. But here's the mystery and the mercy. The same principle works in reverse. Every time you notice a negative thought and choose, however awkwardly, however incompletely, not to follow it down its familiar path, you begin creating an alternative. Every time you pause in the middle of self-criticism and try speaking to yourself as you would to a dear friend, you're watering a different seed. Every time you catch yourself catastrophizing and deliberately redirect toward what's actually happening right now, you're building a new neural pathway. It's slow work. The old pathways don't disappear just because you've decided to walk a new direction. They remain well-worn and easy to slip into, especially when you're tired or stressed. But with consistency, not perfection, consistency, the new ways of thinking become more accessible, more automatic, more you. There's a particular application of this understanding that matters immensely as we age, how we think about aging itself. Researchers have found that people who hold positive beliefs about aging, who see it as a time of continued growth rather than inevitable decline, actually live longer, healthier lives. Their positive beliefs literally shape their biology. Meanwhile, those who internalize society's negative stereotypes about aging experience faster cognitive decline, more health problems, shorter lifespans. Your thoughts about growing older are helping to determine how you grow older. Think about that. It's not that positive thinking magically erases arthritis or prevents dementia. It's that the mind you bring to the experience of aging shapes what that experience becomes. Two people with identical health conditions can have radically different qualities of life based solely on their mental relationship with what's happening. In traditional Buddhist practice, there's a concept called mindfulness of mind, not mindfulness in the vague popular sense of being generally calmish, but specific, precise attention to the quality and content of your thinking. What am I dwelling on right now? What mental habit is active in this moment? Where is my attention actually living? This isn't self-judgment, it's investigation. It's the beginning of agency. Because until you clearly see where your mind habitually goes, you can't begin to redirect it. You're just living inside your thought patterns, assuming they're reality itself, rather than one particular brain's habitual interpretation of reality. Here's a practice so simple it sounds almost insulting, yet profoundly difficult. Several times throughout your day, stop and ask yourself, what was I just thinking about? Not what you should be thinking about. Not what you wish you'd been thinking about. What were you actually thinking about in the last few minutes before you asked the question? Most people discover something uncomfortable. They've been thinking about very little that actually matters to them. Their minds have been churning through worries about things they can't control, or rehashing conversations from days ago, or planning conversations that will never happen, or running familiar loops of self-criticism. The mind left to itself tends toward repetitive, useless, often painful activity, like a dog that returns to lick the same wound until it can't heal. The second part of the practice. When you notice where your mind has been, ask, is this where I want to live? Not, is this thought true? Not, can I solve this problem? Simply, is this the mental dwelling place I want to inhabit? Because inhabit it, you will, more and more, as you age and the walls of distraction thin. Louis Richmond, a Buddhist teacher and author of Aging as a Spiritual Practice, survived a near-fatal illness in midlife. In his recovery, unable to work, unable to do much of anything, he was forced to confront the question, what do I do with my mind when there's nothing to do? He discovered that the mind he'd built through decades of practice of meditation, of repeatedly returning to present moment awareness, of training attention toward kindness, was the only resource he had. And it was enough. Not because he achieved some transcendent state, but because he'd trained a mind capable of being with what was, without constantly needing it to be different. This is the gift of mind training as you age. Not that you'll never feel pain or fear or grief. You will probably more than ever, as losses accumulate. But you'll have built a mind that doesn't amplify suffering, that doesn't turn each difficulty into a catastrophe, that doesn't collapse your entire sense of self around whatever hurts today. There's a Tibetan Buddhist saying, don't let your mind be like a wild horse. The metaphor is precise. An untrained mind jerks you from one thought to the next, reacting to every stimulus, running toward attraction and away from aversion, never settling, never resting. Training the mind doesn't mean crushing its wildness or denying its energy. It means learning to ride, to guide, to work with the mind's natural responsiveness rather than being helplessly dragged wherever it wants to go. Not all thoughts are created equal in their effects on well-being. Some thought patterns actively support peace and resilience. Others, no matter how justified they seem, corrode both. Gratitude is the clearest example. When researchers study people who maintain well-being into old age, one factor appears again and again: a spontaneous habit of noticing what's good, not denying what's hard, but not obsessing over it either. These people seem to have trained themselves to register beauty, kindness, simple pleasures, to let those experiences land and matter, rather than sliding past unnoticed in the mind's habitual scan for problems. This isn't about forced cheerfulness. It's about what you allow to count. Everyone's day contains both difficulties and small graces. The question is, what do you dwell on? What do you rehearse in your mind later? What do you tell the story about when you're alone with your thoughts at night? There's a meditation practice where you deliberately call to mind someone you're grateful for and spend time letting that appreciation fill awareness. Not thinking about them analytically, but feeling the warmth of gratitude itself. When you do this regularly, something shifts. You begin noticing more things and people to appreciate, not because your life has changed, but because you've trained your attention to register gratitude when it arises. You've made a neural pathway for it. The opposite is equally true. Resentment, when rehearsed daily, becomes a lens that colors everything. You can be sitting in comfort, surrounded by care, and still be utterly miserable because you're living in memories of old injuries or fantasies of what should have been different. Your actual present circumstances barely register. You're trapped in a thought-built prison of your own continual construction. The Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron speaks about the second arrow, a concept from early Buddhist teachings. The first arrow is the pain that life brings: loss, illness, disappointment. The second arrow is what we do to ourselves in response: the story-making, the why-me's, the if-onlys, the endless mental commentary that turns pain into suffering. We can't always avoid the first arrow, but the second arrow, that's optional. That's the one we shoot at ourselves, again and again, through habitual thought patterns we've never examined. As you age, this distinction becomes crucial. The first arrows come more frequently. That's just the mathematics of a long life. More people you love die. More of your own body stops working as it once did. More of what you counted on proves impermanent. You can't stop the first arrows, but you can, with practice, begin to see the second arrow for what it is: your own mind's habitual addition to what's already difficult. And once you see it, you can begin to choose differently. If someone told you that spending 20 minutes a day on a particular activity would significantly improve your quality of life in old age, would reduce your risk of depression, slow cognitive decline, increase your sense of meaning, even extend your lifespan, you'd probably do it. Particularly if the activity cost nothing, required no special equipment, and could be done anywhere. This is what meditation research has been quietly demonstrating for years now. Not meditation as exotic spiritual practice, but meditation as simple, repeated training in noticing where your mind goes and bringing it back to presence. Again, and again, and again. Not because presence is superior to thinking, but because most of our thinking is useless, circular, and actively harmful to well-being. The monks had it right all along. They weren't sitting still for mystical reasons. They were working with the most fundamental determinant of human experience, the quality and direction of attention. They understood that a mind left untrained will make you miserable no matter how good your circumstances. And a mind that's been trained through years of patiently noticing when you've drifted into rumination and gently returning to the breath, the body, This moment that mind has resources that no external circumstance can provide or remove. You don't need to become a monk. You don't need to sit in perfect lotus position or achieve some special state. You just need to regularly practice the most basic human skill, the one we rarely ever practice. Noticing what you're thinking about and choosing whether to continue thinking it. Start with 1 minute. Sit comfortably. Breathe normally. Notice when your mind wanders to planning or remembering or judging. When you notice it's wandered, bring attention gently back to the physical sensation of breathing. Do this for 1 minute. Notice how difficult it is. Notice how many times your mind pulls away in just 60 seconds. This difficulty is the point. You're discovering how little control you actually have over your own attention, how mechanical and habitual your thought patterns are. This discovery isn't failure. It's the essential first step toward freedom. You can't change what you don't see. With consistent practice, and we're talking months and years here, not weeks, something begins to shift. Not that you achieve perfect concentration or transcendent peace, but that you develop a tiny gap between stimulus and reaction, between thought and belief, between what arises in your mind and what you do with it. That gap is everything. That gap is where freedom lives. In your 70s and 80s, when so much else is slipping away, this capacity to work with your own mind becomes your most valuable possession, not because it prevents loss or pain, but because it prevents you from drowning in the mental suffering you add to loss and pain. It lets you experience what's actually happening, which is often hard, but not as hard as what the untrained mind makes of it. There's a story in Zen tradition about a student asking his teacher, "How can I achieve enlightenment?" The teacher replies, "Have you eaten your breakfast?" "Yes," says the student. "Then wash your bowl," says the teacher. The point isn't obscure, it's radical. You don't achieve peace in old age by having the right philosophy or the best circumstances. You build peace through what you do with your attention in ordinary moments, repeated thousands of times. Washing your bowl, drinking your tea, walking from one room to another. Each moment is an opportunity to practice presence or to drift into the habitual mental noise that steals your life without you noticing. This is why Buddhist practice has always emphasized daily life over special experiences. The point isn't to have peak moments of clarity on meditation retreats. The point is to train a mind that brings clarity, kindness, and presence to washing the dishes, to waiting in line, to waking up in the middle of the night with a racing heart, because that's where you actually live. That's the curriculum. Every moment of your life, you're practicing something. The question is what? Are you practicing worry? Are you practicing resentment? Are you practicing the assumption that things should be different than they are? Or are you practicing noticing what's actually here? Accepting it? Meeting it with some basic friendliness? You might think this is too simple to matter, but consider, if you practice worry 20 times a day, every day, for 30 years, that's more than 200,000 repetitions. You've become a virtuoso of anxiety. Your brain has been shaped, very literally, in worry's image. The neural pathways are highways. The response is automatic. But if you practice, just occasionally at first, noticing beauty, really stopping to register it, to let it affect you, if you practice gratitude, letting yourself feel appreciation rather than just thinking about it, if you practice kindness toward yourself in moments of difficulty, speaking to yourself as you would to someone you love, over time, over years, these practices accumulate. They build something. They shape the brain, carve new pathways, become easier and more automatic. You're building the house you'll live in when you're 80. Every thought is one more board, one more nail. Most people don't realize they're building anything. They just think thoughts, day after day, assuming they're passive observers of some fixed internal landscape. They're not. They're architects, whether they know it or not. Here's what's strange and beautiful. The very losses that seem most threatening about aging, the stripping away of roles, abilities, distractions. These same losses can reveal a peace that was always there, buried under everything you thought you needed to be happy. Buddhist teachings point to something often misunderstood in Western interpretation. The goal isn't to achieve peace. Peace is what remains when you stop creating suffering through mental habit. It's not built, it's revealed, like cleaning years of grime from a window and discovering the light was always there. As you age and life simplifies, sometimes gently, often not, you have less and less to hide behind, fewer identities to maintain, fewer projects to justify your existence, fewer decades stretching ahead to imagine things will somehow be different. And in that enforced simplicity, there's a choice point that many people miss. You can experience this as loss, as diminishment, as the end of meaning, or you can discover that you never needed all that scaffolding in the first place. That something in you is perfectly fine with being exactly who and where you are, right now, with nothing to prove and nowhere else to get to. This isn't resignation. It's not giving up on life. It's recognizing that the peace you've been seeking through achievement, recognition, perfect circumstances, the right relationship, enough money, that peace has never been found there by anyone, no matter how much they acquired. But it has been found, again and again, by people who learned to work skillfully with their own minds, who trained attention, who chose, day after day, not to follow every thought down its hole. The Buddha's essential insight was about suffering and its end. Not pain, pain is inevitable, but suffering, the mental anguish we add to pain through our thoughts, our resistance, our demands that reality be different than it is, that's optional. It's created through mental habit. And what's created through habit can be changed through different habits. This is your work now, if you're willing, to notice your habits of thought, to see them clearly, and to patiently, gently, train your mind toward patterns that serve life rather than steal it. Not perfectly, not all at once, but consistently, with the kind of patient determination you'd bring to any skill worth developing. Your peace in old age won't be something that happens to you. It will be something you've built, thought by thought, choice by choice, moment by moment, over decades. The building is already happening. The only question is whether you're participating consciously or letting old habits run the show. Let me end with something personal, something I've noticed in the people I've known who aged with genuine peace. They had very different lives, different beliefs, different circumstances, but they shared something subtle. When you were with them, you felt they were actually there, present, not lost in thought, not rehearsing the past or future, not performing some version of who they thought they should be, just present, available, interested in this moment with you. That presence wasn't a spiritual achievement. It was the fruit of having spent years training their attention to rest here, in what's actually happening, rather than in the constant mental commentary about what's happening. They'd practiced meeting each moment with some basic acceptance rather than constant judgment and reaction. And because of that training, because of that daily practice repeated thousands of times, they experienced aging very differently than most people do. They had pain, of course they did. They faced loss and limitation. But they didn't suffer in the way that comes from fighting reality, from wanting every moment to be different than it is, from living in a mind that attacks itself and others constantly. They found a kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances being perfect, that can't be taken away by illness or isolation or the body's betrayals. Not because they achieved some permanent spiritual state, but because they trained, very simply, to not make everything worse through habitual negative thinking. This is available. Not easy, but available. The question is whether you'll take it seriously enough to practice, to do the small, boring work of noticing your thoughts, questioning your mental habits, choosing again and again to train attention toward what serves life. Your mind is shapeable. Your brain is plastic. What you think about daily is, right now, building the quality of your awareness in old age. You can't control whether you'll be healthy or sick, wealthy or poor, surrounded by people or alone. But you can influence whether you'll have peace, whether you'll have a mind that's a refuge or a torment, whether you'll be able to meet what comes with some basic friendliness and acceptance, or whether you'll drown in the mental suffering of constant resistance. The Buddha taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. You're becoming something right now. What is it? What do you want it to be? The choice, such as it is made daily, made hourly, made in each moment. You either follow a habitual thought pattern or notice it and choose differently. These small choices accumulate. They compound. Over years and decades, they become the foundation of how you experience being alive. This is Buddhist mind training, not exotic, not mystical. Just the patient, lifelong work of shaping your own mind toward peace before old age arrives and demands you live in whatever house you've built.